Welcome to Inside the IWAR, and I am your host, Luke Martin. The show tonight, if you guys haven't caught on by now, is to get behind the people of the IWAR, the hearts, the minds, the lives of the managers that make it up. So tonight I have Matt Riley. He's basically the Dave Meltzer of the IWA and the IWAR. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably know who he is, and if you don't, I don't know what you've been doing this whole time. So he has been around. He has been everywhere, and basically I'm just going to pick his brain and try to find out stuff about him. So we can have fun with that, and I hope you enjoy. All right, sweet. So how's it going, Matt?
It's going pretty good.
Good to hear. If I pause, I'm drinking beer. I have beer this time. It makes me relaxed. So,
Do you have official sponsor beer?
I like Pabst Blue Ribbon, but my wife bought me Oktoberfest, so I can't complain.
All right.
I think Pabst Blue Ribbon's better. It's like $10 for a 12-pack, so can't really go wrong there. And I am not an alcoholic, by the way. Let's just kind of clear that up before we start off. So, like I said, the Dave Meltzer of the IWA. I liked the whole history thing that you did with the BRL. I've obviously been around for a little while, a little bit longer than everybody. Yeah, no problem. I'm just going to continue to allude to the fact that you're old throughout this podcast.
I am.
No, so, and, there's a lot of, you're kind of like the face of the IWAR for good and for bad. We'll kind of get into that later. Like, I'll tell you some weird crap that happened, we'll talk about it further on, but I wanted to start, it's weird. People that aren't in the IWAR are weird, evidently. So, where are you from? Like, what's your background?
I grew up in Peabody, Massachusetts, which is north of Boston, about 15 minutes. I currently live in Saugus, about 12 minutes outside the city. And I was one of those guys in school who liked wrestling. And then in 8th grade, a friend of mine gave me a magazine. There was an ad in the magazine for IWA. So I played that and gave it a shot. And it was just a fun outlet. And then when I was, 16, I started looking at wrestling schools. So I wrote letters to the Hart, Dungeon. I wrote to different schools, the Monster Factory, all across the country. I looked in every wrestling school I could find. And the closest one was Killer Kowalski's Pro Wrestling Institute. So I stopped by, and it looked great, So that was actually, a school I could afford. So I saved money. And my last day of high school, my final exam, May 21st, 1991, I went that night and joined up.
That's pretty awesome. So that's like where Triple H, Perry Saturn, that's a pretty prestigious wrestling school.
Yeah, my brush with fame, as I like to say, was Perry Saturn was one of the guys that trained me. And when Triple H first started, one of my favorite moments was Walter looked at the whole room full of people, pointed at me, and told me to get in the ring with him. So his first few days, I was the kind of the guy that worked with him. And flash forward years later, Scott Franklin sends me a message, and it's this picture. It's blurry. And I'm like, What is this? And he sends me another shot, and I can tell, and it's Killer's school. And I'm looking, and there's Triple H, there's Killer, and there's me. And I guess just some sort of Triple H autobiography type thing, bio film. And there's a clip of us in there in the ring. I'm like, holy shit. So there is somewhere in my house an old VHS tape with me training with him and some other guys. If I could find it, I'd put it online, but it's just lost in the years somewhere.
You're just taking credit. You're just taking credit for his entire career at this point, is what you're saying?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, obviously, when he almost knocked me out cold with a power bomb, he was so strong. It's funny, you think he's jacked now, but he was like just a power bodybuilder up in this area in New Hampshire. And he came down with him and somebody else came down with him, and he, of course, had the physique of a wrestler already. So he was good. He was just very strong. It's surprising. Some guys, when you get in the ring with them, you almost, because it's a natural move to hesitate to, to hurt somebody for real, because you want to use full power. But he was just like, and when you go for a power bomb, you do a crunch to kind of pull yourself up, and that when you go down, you unfold. And he just yanked me up like I didn't have to do a crunch. He just whipped me up in the air. I was like, holy shit! So that was kind of a fun, wow, this guy is strong.
I always wondered, because I watched something probably on the network or something about his little bio or whatever. Because he talked about how into bodybuilding he was, and then he went into WCW, and he was kind of like a body guy, but not too much. And then he kind of slimmed down when he was doing his gimmick, the Hunter Hearst Helmsley gimmick thing or whatever, the Paula whatever gimmick that he had. And then as soon as he stopped doing that, he got huge again. I don't know. I think it was weird to kind of see that, but now looking back, it makes a lot more sense. I just don't know why he would have slimmed down, but I guess it made more sense for the character if he wasn't straight yoked up.
Well, I think it depends on the style you want to wrestle too. Like when I wrestled, I was 190 pounds. I was a hardy type, high flying skinny guy, if you will. Not a
Yeah.
skinny guy, but thinner. And
Right.
then years later, I actually got hurt in the ring, and part of my rehab was to work out, and I just got addicted to it. So I worked out more and more and more and more, and I actually developed more of a wrestler's body after I got hurt. And then, like, it's also too, once you get hurt, your mindset changes. I suppose it's like a football player or hockey player, going to the boards, you're kind of hesitant. So I couldn't do the moves I used to do, when I first started. I just, the flips and such. In a way, it was kind of a good thing that I got hurt. But like a lot of things, I think the style you want to wrestle, your body will dictate a lot of that. Because you've seen some guys, Big Van Vader did a moonsault, but he was a big fat guy,
Right.
Whereas, someone like Helmsley, if he dropped a lot of weight, he could do more in the ring athletically. Because once you get muscled up, you kind of lose some flexibility.
Right. That makes sense. I mean, like I hurt my shoulder, and even though obviously I didn't get like yoked or anything, I go in the gym to strengthen it up, and then you just change like what you can do and what you can't do. So I definitely understand that, because even after like surgery, you still don't feel like you're hesitant to do certain things when it comes, like, even if you're fully healed. I could see that. So that's what you get for doing flippy shit. See, that's what happens.
Right. Oh my god.
Oh my god.
We just laughed for no reason according to the audio.
Yep, there's nothing. It was a hidden. We were laughing awkwardly. That's what it is. So that's really cool. I known that you done like some professional wrestling, but I hadn't really realized. So was it when you were going to his school? Where's his school at? I mean, I know you said you're from the Boston area.
Yeah, the school used to be in Malden, which is just north of Boston, off the Orange Line. And it was actually at this Richard Burns Tang Sudo studio. So you'd climb these like 3 flights of stairs to get to the 3rd floor. And then it was like this, in the summer, it was so hot, 10 pounds off just wrestling. But what happened is that the school started at like 4 on Saturdays or at different times, basically at night. I think it was Tuesday, Thursdays, like 6 to 10. But you'd show up early. It wasn't locked. You'd go, oftentimes you just get right in, because if Richard was there, it was unlocked. You could go in early. And some of the guys, this guy Scotty, I forget his full name, but like we'd go and just practice for a half hour together just to get ourselves ready. And there was a little gym in there, but the thing was, one side of the ring, and if you look at that, I can probably post a picture on the IWAR page, the picture of Triple H, Killer, and myself, there's a wall right behind us. One side of the ring was like right next to the wall, so you had like a 4-foot gap. So if you missed a move and went on the ropes, you'd be kind of hitting the wall. And we couldn't do certain moves because of the ceiling height. Which when you wrestle other parts, like if you don't wrestle in an actual armory or like a arena or a facility, like I wrestled a couple times in this old broken down, like I guess it was like a factory. And when I went to the top rope, I had to move the hanging lights aside to jump off. There are things that you have to get used to when you work in a space. I worked once in a car dealership that was closed down, and the ring had a hole in it. So it was just, when you go on the road, you encounter different things. So it was kind of actually a good thing to kind of work. Killer's ring also, by the way, had a pole in the middle because it's an old boxing ring. So when you took bumps off the top rope, you aimed for the edges of the sides instead of the actual middle of the ring. So the Ric Flair, like, oh no, he gets slammed on the top rope. You'd go down hard and be like, oh, it sucked. What ended up happening to the school actually was Killer passed away, and the school had gone into basically ownership of the Chaotic Wrestling promotion up here in southern New Hampshire, northern Mass. I think it's Chelmsford maybe, and it got moved essentially. So in lineage-wise, it's the child of the Killer Kowalski Pro Wrestling Institute, but there's no more institute anymore per se, but it's Chaotic. So one of the guys that was a trainer, I think 2 of the guys actually were trainers at Killers before he passed away, took over and took the name and all that. So he was a really good trainer. He really was. There's a guy named Rip Rogers on Twitter, the OVW trainer, and he reminds me so much of Walter, the way he'll talk about matches or like psychology and like doing absolute stupid things. Like one of the biggest mistakes I always see people make is they work their leg the whole match, and the guy goes for a power slam at the end using his leg to push himself up, and it's like your leg should give out. Like, keep the psychology alive. It was a great school to go to. It really was.
Well, yeah, because Kowalski was like a major heel. He was like top level, like heel all over anywhere he went. He was always probably like one of the top tier guys. So
he was a very big believer in like over the top in the sense because it's a performance. So not in the sense of like cartoonish, but like if you're a villain, you jump off the second rope to hurt somebody's knee, put all your weight into it, make it look as painful as possible, because you want the fan in the front row and the fan in the last row to both think this guy just had his leg fucking broken. Like
gotcha.
Like if you're a bad guy, be a bad guy. I remember Perry used to tell me, like, if you're a heel and you take a spill out of the ring, you should pick a fan on each side of the ring that's a mark that'll totally go off on any kind of reaction you give them. Because that way, if I go out of the ring and I pop up, I can be like, "You son of a bitch, shut your mouth," and they'll come at me, you know. And the fans, of course, will, you know, whether it's an old person or a kid or a mark or just whatever, but it's a good way to get the fans involved, because oftentimes fans will be like, you know, ho-hum, and bad guys go out of the ring and they kind of walk around. Like, there needs to be, you can almost kind of tell, like, everyone, I first saw Kevin Owens, the way he interacted with the fans, like, that guy's going to be good. That guy's going to be good, because he made it a point to connect with the fans. And a lot of guys are so focused on hitting their flip and their spot. It's like, come on, man, get those fans involved.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. Like, I mean, it's awesome that you're able to learn that type of psychology, because, I mean, like, even, like, so Owens, like, Jericho, I mean, like, when they're a heel and they're just a complete douche. Like,
right.
Jericho ripped up that sign about Bret Hart, and, like, they just do, like, straight, like, mean asshole shit to people, and that's what makes people hate them. It's not because what they do in the ring. Like, it's one thing if you're, like, mean to somebody, but if you're, like, mean to, like, a little kid, or, like, tear up somebody's sign, and I think that's kind of something why it's a lot harder for people to get over as heels, is because they're just not getting into the fans. Like, they're not, you know, doing that kind of shit that a lot of the great heels used to do. It's just like, the people are the ones that you need to impress. Like, they see everybody do moves, but when you interact with them, and the fact that they just say, like, Kevin Owens especially, it's promos. So
one of the best examples we've had recently on how to be a good heel was the whole build-up to the McGregor-Mayweather match. They're both so good at, like, just being assholes. Like, either side, you wanted one of them to get their ass beat. So people wanted to see that, and that's the thing. It's missing a lot of the time, is you don't have that heel who's just a complete son of a bitch. Right. And I really do enjoy. I think what happens, maybe part of it is they're afraid of, like, their merchandise sales. Like, oh my God, they're not going to buy my shirt if they hate me. Dude, don't worry about that. Just set yourself up. Be a bigger star. Like, maybe The Miz doesn't have the biggest merchandise sales, but he's the best heel right now.
Like, people really want to see The Miz get beat up. And that thing with Daniel Bryan, like, I mean, he was already doing great work at that time, but, like, that kind of put him on the map, because he was just straight up, like, I mean, that's just cold to say. Like, hey, you're a great wrestler, but hey, it's your fucking fault. You know, you did all this bullshit. You fucked yourself up, and now, you know, you ruin this for the fans. Like, don't fucking criticize me, that kind of shit.
The core of that argument or that speech was very true, was that there are guys out there who do these insane moves that look fantastic, but the risk level is so high that I went to a show once. I was filming at ringside, and I saw a guy take a German suplex wrong and paralyze himself.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and it was right in front of me. And the thing about it was, the guy had told the promoter, oh, yeah, I've been trained. And Chandler, the promoter, he should have done better research. If only there was some sort of way to fix that. But yeah, it's a hint for Alex. He'll chime in later. He'll add that out anyways. It won't matter. But no, just if there was a way for promoters to know what they're dealing with experience-wise, it wouldn't be that, yeah, I'm trained. So when you have someone take a move the wrong way, and you think to yourself, here's a guy, he's young, he's never going to see the big time because he's busted his body because he wanted to hit a spot. Like, why? You know, and I get it. You want to have. It reminds me when I was doing comedy. I had these guys come up and like, I got this great set. I want to use some racy language. I go for it. But just remember, whatever you say on stage, own it. Like, don't go in half-assed. And they go up there with a set that was just terrible, or they'd say things that were really like, you know, like it wasn't funny. You were just trying to be offensive and hot take-ish, you know. And that didn't work. It's like, there's a reason they call it like, you know, hack comedy. But like the hack comedy stuff, it's learning your rhythm, your timing, your pacing. It's very similar to wrestling. You're learning the audience. You know when the pauses are. You know when to take a break, take a breather, do a rest hold, get the tempo right. And I know a lot of the time we watch shows in wrestling, especially nowadays, and it's very common to have these 4-minute matches or 2-minute matches. And I'm like, I'm going to take Zack Ryder's a legit competitor. Seriously? He loses in 2 minutes. You win the IC belt at WrestleMania. Like, come on. Branding process of, well, you don't have a legit threat of that guy. Why even put him on TV?
I think that goes into a lot of things. I think WWE is kind of like one of those things, like Alex was saying too, it's just like they're trying to sell the brand. They're not trying to sell the individual wrestler. And you know, I think he's right. And the more I thought about it too, I mean, like if they can get WWE over without the talent getting over, I mean, they don't ever have to have a situation where you have like a Stone Cold walk out, or, you know, Rock leaves and does movies, or, you know what I'm saying? They don't have to. They can just get the product over. But I think they're trying to do that too much at the cost of some of the talent, because it's just ridiculous to have. Why give somebody the title for a day? Like, unless it's like, oh, okay, you know, like where they did stuff with like, okay, so Bruno has to drop the title or we have to back on us drop the title to the Sheik so the Sheik can give it to Hulk, so it like makes sense, so it's not face versus face, it's heel versus face or whatever. But it's just a lot of times it's just pointless, and they just do it to do it. So I don't really know why. I think it's just to get the product over, but they're going to come to a point where it's really good, so that they I don't think people need the WWE like they used to within the past like 10 or 20 years. So hopefully some big guy leaves, and then they kind of realize that they still do need the talent. They can't just get their product over or whatever. We'll see about that. Yeah, so you said how long were you doing professional wrestling? I know you said you got hurt, but how long did you end up doing the whole?
Oh, not very long. I mean, for me at least. I'd say 91 to about 94, and then I got hurt, and then I made a comeback in 97, 98, and then I hurt my leg playing football with friends. Oddly enough, I did a movie 2003, 2004. I was acting at the time, acting, full-time, quote-unquote, and feature-length film. It was an independent film. This guy had saved his money, he wanted to do it, and he had gone to a wrestling school, but he was hurt in the ring and he couldn't wrestle at all. So the idea was like an office-based movie with wrestling. So he's this guy who wanted to be a wrestler, and he dreams of it, and of course he talks about it throughout the movie. And the movie actually opens with him in the wrestling ring having a match. And we actually filmed it in Hamden, Connecticut in late 2004. I wrestled this guy. I just met him. I didn't have a chance to practice together at all, Justin. And actually we're still friends on Facebook. I'm in his football league for years now, and fantasy football league, and we just talked about some spots, and he did a kind of a evil Austin Power type gimmick. He was a skinny guy, so we went in, worked some spots, hit a couple of botches, but they edited it out, of course. And the idea is he wakes up and he realizes it's a dream, and it's like, fuck. And my mother, my favorite line is that my mother went to see this with my sister. They rented this theater out, and my first line in the movie is fuck, because you wake up and it's like a dream. And the movie's called Cubicle Slaves, and it's again, it's a zany type thing. There's like, my office cubicles mate, and I have a romance with a woman at work, and I tell an exceedingly graphic, dirty story at one point that I completely forgot about when we were at the movie watching it. And I'm like, oh shit. As soon as they were telling it, like, my mom's like 2 seats over from me, and she was just like not happy about it. But, she was like, well, I thought you did very well, but some of the language I didn't agree with. Yes, thanks, Ma. But that's the life you lead when you're in acting.
I say that I think that takes like watching that awkward sex scene or like awkward time with your parents. That takes it to the a whole new level when like it literally is you doing the things that are awkward. So yeah.
We had one. It was like not a love scene, if you want to call it that, but like we start going at it and it fades out, and then it comes back and we're post-coital. I was like, oh, at least my mom would be there for that. That would be super, super. My sister was like, oh, it was good, blah, blah, blah. But it was this little film called Cubicle Slave. It's on the internet somewhere. The wrestling part was a lot of fun. It really was. I had some friends that came down, but I would say that was 2004. And then last spring, about a year ago, an old schoolmate of mine came up to me where I work and was like, hey, listen, I have a question. You used to be a trainer. Would you want to help me work? He's starting a wrestling promotion. So I actually was helping him for a while, training his guys. But we ran into a big problem. The space we had was actually not that bad. But what happened, where we had the ring was in an indoor sports facility in a separate room. And the ceiling wasn't the issue. The ring was actually about 4 feet too small. So instead of like a 16 by 16 ring, it was 12 by 12. So we had to do a really tight wrestling style. So if you went for a clothesline, you'd hit him right away. And that wasn't too bad. But a lot of the guys were very inexperienced. So it was like really working like with clay. Then there was some drama involved. And then what ended up happening was the owner of the facility came in to like just look at the space and was like, what the hell is a ring doing in my soccer/baseball facility? And it did not like that. So he kicked us out, essentially. And it took them months and months and months to find a new space. And, of course, I hurt my back at work, so I was kind of like off the table, if you will. And they're starting back up again. He just had business cards made. He's got a couple of belts made. I mean, he wants to make this a legit thing, but he wants to kind of do a very different approach to the wrestling. He wants to make it more like heavy storyline driven, where it's like pushing towards the matches. So his main booker or production creative guy is a former like TV screenwriter, so he's got a lot of like that background. So he wants to kind of push this whole thing. So who knows? Hopefully he'll do well. I'd like to see that.
Well, I mean, and I guess it kind of work with like Lucha Underground a little bit as far as like the scripting and stuff like that. So,
Sure.
and kind of taking it over the top. So, I mean, there's you never know what'll get over. It just depends on if the wrestling's good. It makes sense. But yeah, I mean that's pretty cool. So you're just kind of like a jack of all trades, basically.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. I mean, I didn't. So you said you got into acting. Did you go to like acting school, or did you just like take classes on it, or?
I did it backwards. When I had friends in high school who were in theater, so I was a soccer player, so I used to like help them rehearse, and
Right.
I always liked it. And then wrestling team was kind of like acting, anyways.
Right.
And when I got hurt, I remember I was sitting on the banks of the Charles River for the 4th of July. It was packed, and my arm was in a sling. I thought I saw some kids like studying summer classes, and I thought I should go to school now because I didn't go to college right out of high school. I went and became a wrestler, and part of that was because I thought if I had gone to college after high school, I would have just chased women the whole time and flunked out.
Great.
So I ended up going to school part-time, working at a steel mill in the daytime, going to school at night, and then I was supposed to go to Miami University for film, and I got accepted, got a room, put a down payment on it, and they last minute they were like, "Oh, we didn't realize, we thought you had a financial aid package. Here's what you should be getting," and I was like short $40,000, and I'm like, I can't
Damn.
pay $40,000. So I didn't go to Miami. I ended up going to Alfred in New York. I went there for a couple of years, but it was also a very expensive school. I would tell anybody out there, college is great. It's good to learn things and educate and all that stuff, but watch what you're paying. It's a very expensive way. I'm still paying off school loans. I'll be paying them off probably most of my life. And I had some great professors at Alfred. I had some great professors at UMass Boston where I finished, and they really helped me, learn the craft and performing. And I just started doing more and more of it as I got out of school. And I was doing it like a lot for a while. I actually got so bad I was going down to Boston University has a Center for Digital Imaging Arts, and it's in Waltham. And it's on this little road on Moody Street. I was involved in so many projects. The guy who ran it was like, I got to kind of like hold you off for a while because I was showing him too many projects, which I totally understood because it was like, but I was one, if you're an actor, just be reliable. Show up when you need to show up. Like if you're booked and you get the gig, show up. So many guys I would know would show up late. They'd show up unprepared. It's like, learn your lines, get ready to go when you show up. Film versus stage. Film is like a one-night stand. A stage is like a relationship, and either one show up, do the job well. I kind of took that philosophy in my life a few years back. I was like, you know what? I don't care if I'm like digging dirt, digging ditches with dirt, right? I'm going to be the best goddamn ditch digger. Like, so whatever you do, just put your effort into it and show you care, and people respect that no matter what you're doing. Acting wise, I miss it a lot. I haven't acted in a while. I love it. I enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. I want to get back into it, so it's on my to-do list.
Okay, cool. So you said you came to the IWA like 87. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, you said you got a magazine, kind of did it. And so what has made you stay around for about 30 years? I mean, like, what was it like when you first came in? How did it evolve?
When I first came in, and you mentioned the BRL tribute issue, I kind of tried to capture that feel. Like, the IWA themselves would be way more involved in the actual process. Like, they talk about, like, they kind of interject little comments about what was going on. It gave a real feel of, like, there was a kind of like special touch to it. And what made it good for me was the friends I made out of it. I lucked out. The CCL, which is the Claw and Cat League, I had, like, Ray Ho, Sonny Ho, the Ho brothers, Ray, Sonny, and Nelson. Oh, my God. I was like, I knew Nelson first. I met them. They were, like, through the game. Back then, it was pen pals. You'd write to each other. So you'd write letters. Like Scott Franklin became a pen pal of mine. Dave Barton, Frank Morano. We'd write letters, start making phone calls. And back then phone calls were expensive, so you'd like be on your home line like a $40 phone call bill. Whoops, But it was the friends you made. And actually, my first love I made out of the game. She was a guy I was feuding with. Was like, oh, there's a woman that writes a newsletter. A woman. She was 16, 15, whatever. And he's like, she's from Quincy, and I was from the North Shore. She was South Shore. So we started writing to each other. Like a year and a half, then we met, and it was like, ding, that was it. We did it for a few years, and then, as like everything in life, you go through changes. She went to college first before I did, and we're still friends. She's still beautiful. She's actually, if you ever go to Boston.com, they have this thing every so often, like, celebrity lookalikes. She's always a Salma Hayek lookalike. It's always kind of funny. It's like, I mean, she doesn't look just like her, but like it's close enough. But, so there's that, and then the friendships. Like, I mean, Scott Franklin's like my brother. Like we're really close. We've always been really close. We lived together for a while, and I think the friendships you make through the game are a big part of it. Now, I was in it from like 87 to about 97, a couple of things happened. One was I went away to college, so I was busy with that and rehearsing. I didn't have time for the game really. Also, you can see the game was kind of heading towards like, it was getting really flooded with players having huge roster players. And I was like, it just people weren't putting much work into it, so it was kind of fading in certain parts. So I kind of was like, okay, whatever, And then 2005, Frank Snow sent me a letter and was like, you should come back. So I looked into it. I came back, but the game was like overrun with like huge rosters. And it was really hard to win. And of course, mind you, I had 2 wrestlers in the whole entire game. So it's like, I can't believe I'm getting outnumbered by, you 2 guys, dude. Chill out. I still managed to win the world tag title, so I was like, yeah, fuck you all. But it was a fun win for me. But then just the game, there was just not as much fun. There wasn't like much role playing. So I was like, whatever. So I left in 2006, like summer, I think. And then in 2010, Frank emailed me and was like, hey, the BRL's hurting. I think it's going to, close. We don't do something about this. So I came back to kind of help out. And that's when we came back. I was like, well, if I come back, I'm not just going to come back to play. We got to do something major and change the game, create something different than just the regular product. And that's where the kind of IWAR came out of. First it was the Gold Rush Report, and then it was the IWAR Revolution, and then it was the IWAR. And the game has progressed, and there's a lot going on in it, and there's some changes. But for the most part, I think what we're at right now is a really good formula. It's 4 leagues. It's not too big. It allows us to showcase. There's different levels in the game. There's the Rookie League. There's the BRL, which is crazy competitive now. I think the champs is at another 516. But it was the relationships you made over the years. And I will say, too, it was back in the early 90s, I guess, 92 to 97. A bunch of us that lived in this area in Boston, we used to go to wrestling shows together. We used to go bowling together. We used to go to, places together, movies, wrestling shows. And then we had a running gag. Whenever we go to wrestling shows, they'd be like, oh, my God, that's Brad Blaze. And they'd point to me. And, of course, kids don't know any better. They'd be like, can I have your autograph? I'm like, get away from me! But it was just a fun gag to do that. I'm like, oh, come on, man. But it was a really cool thing to do at the time, and we had fun with it. And I think that was a big part of it. Like, I know some of the guys, like Mark Duchesne and Anthony Duddick, had gotten together a couple times over the years. And, Alex and I have talked about going to a show together. Of course, money kind of kept us from doing the SummerSlam gig, but you never know. It's going to happen at some point.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't want to talk about that because I have, major heat with Jake Joyce. I'm just calling him out right now. Came all the way to Nashville. And then, he's like, oh, I didn't know that you lived there. I still thought you were in Iowa, which I haven't lived in 10 years. You just didn't call me, didn't message me. So, whatever. It is what it is. No, I don't know. I saw him. He posted that thing. There's a statue in downtown Nashville where he's with his girlfriend. And I was like, dude, are you in Nashville? And he's like, yeah, I was. And I was like, dude, what the hell? I was like, why didn't you message me? He's like, oh, I thought you were in Iowa.
Yeah, I will say, I know there's a couple of players that are in Massachusetts, but they used to list where you're from. Now they just list a state. Like the Win in the IWA, they used to from Peabody, Massachusetts. Now it's just Massachusetts.
Right.
Because believe it or not, there are guys that will stalk other players. That's something else that's fun to talk about, but we can wait on that one, I guess. But yeah, I would say we've talked about doing an unofficial IWAR convention, pick a WrestleMania. Let's just go down there and what the hell, we'll all go down, catch a show, or some other event. Royal Rumble will be fun. I think Royal Rumble's one of the ones I always enjoy because it's a good event usually. It's setting things up. Yeah.
Well, I think if they had it a centralized location, that might be easier. So I don't know. I mean, we could always do it in beautiful Willowick, Ohio. I was bored one day and Googled it, and it's right off one of the Great Lakes.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. I've never been over there, so.
I have been there. I was actually with friends of mine. We were going to Indianapolis for Gen Con, which is, if you know what Gen Con is, it's sort of like a Dungeons & Dragons tabletop role-playing nirvana. And I had some friends that are married with kids, and they were always like, if we go, would you go? I'm like, absolutely, and never figuring to get a yes, and they got a yes. So we were driving, and as I'm mapping it out on my computer, I noticed it goes through Upper Ohio. I'm like, oh, and the road goes right through Willowick, Ohio. So I was like, we got to do this. So I had the belt from when I won the belt with Senior Lucha. So I stopped and took a picture of this ridiculous Willowick, Ohio welcome sign.
I do remember that. When was that? I remember you posting that.
I think it was 2015. It was
Okay.
about a year after I won the belt. And, whatever, it was just me being ridiculous and silly. Of course, some people were like all offended by it. Like, okay.
All right. So yeah. Okay. Cool. That is a perfect segue
Oh boy.
into the weirdness that is, like, I don't know what it is that you've done to these people that are evidently like hate you for some reason, but it's very real. Like, so I have I was in like 2013, 2014, and so I had like a Twitter account. So I used to talk like crap on Twitter or whatever, which was kind of like the thing. So like, go back and forth like Jimmy Digital or whoever was online, right? So I remember I was getting someone was like messaging me about like asking me questions about like the IWAR, and like, I don't know, like, it's just the whatever. Okay, cool. Like, I didn't know if they wanted to join, but they were basically just like asking me questions like about you, and there was like this huge controversy and like all this other stuff. So like, it's very weird. Like, I don't know what it is that like so offends people about like the little section of the game that we had. I mean, this is back when the IWAR had, I think it was 8 leagues, like a very big, like,
yeah. Well, when it first got going with the Gold Rush, it was 4 leagues,
right?
And then people wanted in, and then we kind of talked about we were going to expand, and we were thinking about making it kind of a fun thing, and it got way too big and too unruly. The thing was too is the idea was always to have the same level of gameplay from league to league, so you wouldn't lose it. You wouldn't be like going from one monstrous TT league to like dropping the bucket. And we got some heat because some players were like, "Oh, you're trying to ruin the game and you're hurting it for guys with limited rosters." And for a while, I was like, "Shut the fuck up, man! I don't care." And now it's like there's so many different leagues you can play in. Like, I always take a look at it like, if you wanted to have a league that suited big roster players, there would be one. If somebody gave a shit, they would put it together. Now, no, I mean, I'm not saying to be a dick about it, but like, seriously, like, if someone wanted to put it together, they could do the work. But unfortunately, we just see a lot of people don't realize how much work goes into it. I was talking to Seth earlier about the pros and cons of being a commissioner, and that one of the things is I wish I kind of gave myself some time off built into the year, because I take a cycle off of like doing the report just to like give myself a break, because there's just it's like what I did, unfortunately, is I staggered all the events, so it's like throughout the year it's running, so I should probably just kind of redo it a little bit. But anyways, back to the point about IWAR is it grew and grew, and people were like, not everyone liked the direction of it, and it was, I mean, I'm forgetting some of the things now, but essentially one of the bigger areas of headbutting was there was a web message board called the IWAR Dungeon while I was one of the moderators. And there were some players on there that what got my goat was I have an instinctive reaction to bullying. I grew up standing up to bullies. I hate it. And people were picking on certain people. And I found I used to be, believe it or not, I was kind of a fan favorite on the board back in the day. I remember Hassan Cash won like the wrestling name of the year, like that, new wrestler name of the year or whatever. I was like, yeah, that's cool. And then when I started going against some of the people that had different opinions, I became a big bad guy. And one of the big things I did was there was a line of a couple of threads that were really way out of line against a player who was fragile mentally. I'll put it that way.
Right.
And he was in a state that was really critical. It was not a good time to be pushing this guy's buttons because he was at risk. I knew this as I talked to him a lot more than some people did, so I kind of understood what was going on. I actually ran his wrestlers for a short time while he took a break from the game, and I deleted the thread. I was like, fuck that, boom. Because that's what a moderator does. A moderator steps in and says, you know what, not cool. And people flip their shit like, this is freedom of speech, blah, blah, blah. Well, freedom of speech would mean me coming to your house and beating the shit out of you because you're being a fucking pussy asshole behind a keyboard. Say that to my fucking face. And that's the thing, is that these people get behind a keyboard, they feel big and bad. And especially when they're picking on someone they think can get away with picking on. So that generated a lot of bad blood. And plus what happened, of course, is people would be like, well, I want to see things run a certain way. And then another thing that happened was when we got going with the IWAR Revolution, Ryan Patrick created the IWL. And one of the things he did that broke, serious unwritten rules was he developed this league on his own without consulting the minds at the dungeon. So they flipped their shit. People were shitting all over him, how it was going to be a failure, wasn't going to work. Yeah, the league fucking has been amazing and still amazing. Worked great for Ryan, and it was awesome, but it was like, he doesn't need to get your permission. And there was some other headbutting. I ran the LWL when I started that up. That was also part of this time frame, and some people didn't like the way I did that. It's still going strong, and I'm happy that it's stronger than ever. At least last I checked, it was doing really well. So I'm happy to see that, go in a good direction. So there are people that didn't like me, and I didn't like them, and that's fine. But then they want to try and make the leagues we were running bottom out or whatever. And I never understood the mindset of, I'm going to come to your league and ruin things by boosting your activity. Great! Okay. And what really kind of exacerbated things was, if as much as I am, I don't put up a lot of bullshit, Bob was like zero tolerance. So Bob, when we started the IWAR message board, when somebody popped in and was like, yeah, I want to be in the board, he's like, oh, you're from the dungeon? Bam! He'd ban him. And it was like, at first, he's waiting until somebody said something he didn't agree with. But then he would just be like, bam, 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 I was like, ooh, all right. And I just was like, you know what, man, it's your board. You can do what you want, So I wasn't going to go to bat for guys that had, been pissing on me. So fuck that shit. And that led to a lot of bad blood that way. And, I remember Kevin Elrod was writing like these, basically, I think he was copying and pasting Alex Jones promos. And there was like, seriously, I stopped reading after the first 2 or 3 because it was like the same exact stuff over and over again, and it sounded like it was literally an Alex Jones promo. Just personal attacks galore. They came with naming wrestlers. Like I remember, like Bob or Alex or somebody else spotted wrestlers that had like names attacking me personally.
Right.
Because I just don't like to pick up on those things sometimes. And I'm like, okay, so there's actually, if you go on the IWA Champions, you'll see wrestlers named after my wrestlers. Like a couple of guys' names are like almost identical to my wrestlers' names. They just changed a little bit to kind of like get my goat, and I'm just like, wow. I mean, I know you guys are using like adverbs and movie credit titles for your wrestlers' names, so you really must be desperate to do that, copy my guys. But whatever. Oh, right, yeah, that's also the kind of the tipping point was when I went to. Well, actually, I had 2 points. One was first, Senor Lucha won the IWA title. I won the title with Lucha after 27 years roughly of playing the game. So it wasn't like and of course, guys are like, they just gave her the title. I was like, right, so they're going to wait till now to give me a title. Whatever, okay. And, but the title, these guys are outspending me by like $100 easy, if not more, a month. But they're going to reward me. Now, I know, what we do helps generate activity and keeps the game running well, and that's, it's a positive. So Senor Lucha wins the title, then like a month later wins the first Johnny B Cup. And the way we staggered the first Johnny B Cup, the idea was that the 4 finalists would get the 4 prizes. And in the first Johnny B Cup, the 4 finalists were Senor Lucha, the Arabian Dream Ali Atari, Hustler Fathom Cash, and Fatty the Butcher. Now, I got there fair and square. Actually, Lucha had an extra match because I forgot I left a guy off one of the rounds, so I had him fight Lucha. And if Lucha lost either match, he was out, and he won both matches. I just had a hot streak. I was lucky. Right. So I won a shit ton of out of my credit and free matches. So yay me. But what I decided to do in the future was all the top 4 prizes would be by managers. The same manager wouldn't win all the prizes. So that way it's more diverse. So that's why we do the way the prizes are now. So that happened. Then the year later when I was in Willowick, Ohio, somebody went on my Facebook account and like posted a bunch of pictures of me from the Gen Con stuff. And there was always this it was written like you couldn't do personal attacks in the dungeon. You couldn't threaten somebody in the dungeon. You couldn't do other things like that. And yet there they were, they were kind of like making an exception for me because they hated me, or enough guys hated me. And as I like to put it, enough guys were just honestly pussies and not afraid to actually speak up and say, this is fucking wrong, dude. Grow the fuck up. And there are some voices that are there that do say that. So, but Jamie and Bradshaw can't do all the talking all the time. So I actually left the dungeon at one point. I just was like, you know what? Fuck this shit. And it's funny because over the years since I left, I want to say it was 2014, 2015. I forget when I left exactly. But I wrote this like goodbye letter where I was like, you know what? The biggest thing about this game, and I still believe this, of the IWA between players that play for one of 2 reasons. Either you play to create a wrestler. So you play for one of 2 reasons. Either you play to create a wrestler, create storylines, and like vividly kind of imagine this wrestler coming to life and having a feud in the game, and the game is your outlet for creativity. Or you play to play against other players as more of a shit-talking, one-upsmanship, hitting the out-of-a report, who's doing better, winning a series type thing. And there's space in this game for both styles of play. There really is. But what I don't like to do is I have no interest in engaging a feud with somebody because it's kind of a slow feud. Like, it'll start off hot. Oh yeah, well this. And then like a month later, it's like, That's why the DXL failed, in my opinion. Because the DXL was going to come out and be like this no-holds-barred trash talk thing. And of course, as soon as they try to get like fuck, cunt, and shit in there, that way was like, yeah, you're not going to do that. And then, they had like all these inside jokes. So one of the things they did, to get back to the point I was trying to make, I'm sorry, they made their stable called FMR, which was Fuck Matt Riley, which I was like, okay. So when I kind of poked the bear in a way, or poked the bee's nest, when Lucha won the title, I made fun of them because it was like, all right, and I call them fans of Matt Riley, which in retrospect, I probably shouldn't have done that, but in the way I was like, fuck this shit. This is stupid as shit. I don't know if I'm the only person to have a stable named after them. I might be. Matt Unick might have something named after him, one of the things. I don't know. I'm not in the dungeon, which gets back to my point about the dungeon. When I left the dungeon, I never went back. I know a couple of players that are still in the dungeon, and every so often they'd be like, dude, what did you do this time? And I'd be like, what are you talking about? And they'd be like, well, and it'd be some rant about me. And I'm like, I'm not on the dungeon. I don't know what you're talking about, And, there are certain players that, honestly, are actually very good players when it comes to the creative aspect, and they're very good players in the report, because it's rare. There's a few players, like Mark Deshane's the first guy I think of, because he's just like, he's a good trash talker, he creates wrestlers, he commissions, he also hits the report regularly.
The dungeon's own special thing. I go on there for like hold charts, or I did for like the different leagues other than gold, but I never like ventured too far in there because I didn't really care. But I do remember like this whole like heat thing on the Hoosier board, and I don't know. It's just really weird because I don't understand. I do know, or at least I thought that I saw in the report, there was like Matt Riley's Latin girlfriend or something. I can't remember what her name was, but I thought that was hilarious.
No, that's not unique. His wrestler was I know you're talking about, and it's like Matt something. It's not me. It was like, it's a different thing. So yeah, but again, it wouldn't surprise me if somebody had a wrestler named after me wherever, as a joke, whatever. I mean, if that gets your, like, if they're sitting home going, I showed him, like, really, dude, that's pathetic. Whatever. And the thing I've always gotten back to is a lot of these guys would come to the leagues and make personal attacks on me and say some shit, or other leagues like that. I would always say a couple of things. Like, they'd be like, oh, you're trying to kill the dungeon. The dungeon didn't get killed by me. The dungeon got killed by Facebook. Right. All right. The message boards died when Facebook became a place for groups. It's just what happened. Because why would you go on there when you can like interconnect different sites and stories on Facebook? It just makes more sense. Second, attempts to ruin the IWAR, they failed. And I know, like, at one point when we folded back down to 4 leagues, they were like, oh, we won. And I'm like, what did you win? You had nothing. You weren't around. So to me, it was just a wasted effort on their part. They spent a lot of money in our leagues and boosted our average cards, and the credit we gave them the BRL went up because there was more activity. Thanks. Like, whatever. And what I always had said to them, if you want to impress me, you don't come to the league and call me out because I don't give a shit about you. You come to the league, you cut a promo on my wrestler, you set up a feud, you show me you can work my style. That would impress me. And, I'm still waiting for that to happen.
Well, I mean, I never got it. Like, coming from the outside, especially as, like, pretty much a rookie player, like, people were, like, asking me, or, like, I'm just like, what the fuck are these dudes worried about? Like, I don't know. It's just, like, a bunch of, like, cunts, like, fighting over bullshit. So I don't know. I never got it. And everybody, like, from our side, I was like, why do you care? Like, like you said, I don't play the game to, like, get on the... And I mean, honestly, now that we get email bulletins, I don't even pay attention to like the actual like IWA stuff. Like, I'm concerned with what's going on in like my league and like the IWAR, but really, I'm not there to like, hit a 501 every time or whatever. I mean, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, I get frustrated, granted, but I suck with numbers anyway, so I'm better at writing. So, whatever. But I think that. And I just always wondered, because I was like, you're getting all this heat from like these random people. I'm like, what did he do to piss all these people off? Well, and why are they DMing me on Twitter?
You have to keep in mind that a lot of these guys had huge rosters, So they had the flexibility to, make all these claims and everything else. And, to me, I didn't, I didn't look at, I'm feeding this, that person's a jackass. I remember there was a point where the IWA would send me an email and be like, so we got this trash talk. Is this crossing a line to you? And it would be talking about me and, whatever. And I'd be like, it's just stupid. I don't really get, do they think Arena's going, oh, they put one over on me? It's stupid. I'll give you the best example I can think of. I went to the Philadelphia Phillies for a game, the Red Sox against Philadelphia. And while we were walking around the stadium, these guys were like, hey, man, Red Sox, high five. And my friend went to high five him. And he pulls his hand back and goes, ha ha. That just encapsulates, to me, their mindset of them coming after me that way. And then here's the fun part. The FMR guys actually asked me to join their stable about a year ago, maybe, not even, because they were trying to get me to, they were trying to boost up the DXL. And I'm like, no. And I got this long thread from one of the guys who didn't like me, and I was saying how much he respected what I did for the game and all this shit. And I'm like, fuck you. No. I'm not joining your shit. Thanks, but no thanks. I just don't have time for that shit, And right. People send me things I've had certain players say, I know this guy outside the game is a good dude. And I'm like, you know what? No, they're not. Because if you show who you really are, usually when you think no one's looking. And to me, that's the kind of guy I don't need to be around. And I don't need their involvement. I don't need to hear from them. If they wanted to play this style, it's fine. Like Matt Unick and I used to argue a couple times. I don't really know him at all. And I know he's a favorite of theirs. They like to have a target to shoot their teenage angst at, but they need a target. So when he leaves the game, they'll pick somebody else. Don't worry. But yeah, that's kind of the whole angle with that. And like I said, it's a thing where IWA would sometimes email me and be like, oh, so-and-so wrote to us and thinks that the thing you put in the IWAR bulletin was a joke at them. And one of my favorite examples was there was a player called Tony Pesante or something like that. And when Frank Morano was alive, he and I used to have this running gag about this fake fan called TP from Flushing because Frank lived in Flushing.
Right.
Again, it was a stupid, I was a 17-year-old when I was making these jokes, so it's an old gag. So I used to do this fan mail section, and I put TP from Flushing. So Tony sent the IWA an email saying he was going to get a lawyer involved and sue them if I didn't delete this. And I'm like, he's a fucking idiot. And in the poor IWA, they have to deal with these fucking assholes. Credit to the IWA, they deal with a lot of fucking stupid assholes. I'm just putting it out there. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to be nice about it. The fact is there are guys out there, and I've actually had women doing this to them, but there's these guys out there that have no social skills. They think they can be douchebags and get away with it. And it's no, you can't. And I've given some guys a second chance, and they proved me wrong. Fucking, you're done. So, there it is.
It's bizarre, to say the least. I mean, just coming from, not in it, but just, from the outside, I always found it, odd. I'm like, who the fuck are you? Why are you talking to me? Or, why is there this, huge heat between, if you're, you don't know him, why do you care, what he does? What does it matter to you? It's not like he's your next door neighbor and you see him every day. It's a game that you play, that
right.
Other people play. Just let them, it's not inhibiting your ability. Gold Federation, which you happen to be in, and there are other federations in which you can go to if you don't enjoy that piece. Not only that, even when we had 8 leagues in IWAR, it wasn't there were no other leagues. So, I don't know, I never got that whole thing. It's just very,
I think at one point, their biggest fear was that they thought we were catching on and that they're going to have an IWAR in every federation. Now, you might say that the IWA would love to have an IWAR in every federation because that would mean they'd be raking in the dough. There was a couple of attempts, one of the players tried to do something like that in the Iron Fed. I think Mike Drake was his name, and he had 4 or 5 leagues that he used, but if you looked at the reports, it was the exact same report. In the IWAR, I think people were afraid that we were going to have this ripple effect, and you'd only have leagues with limits in them. And there's 70 leagues, 60-some leagues now. The game's doing better than it has been. I actually tracked performance of leagues over the last 4 or 5 years. The game's actually on an upward trend now. Again, like you said, on the outside looking in, why do you care? But, right.
I don't know. People are just, I don't know. People are just cunts, no matter what. And especially if they feel autonomy. I mean, it's Yeah, you can call me a bitch when I'm not around, but when I'm there, I guarantee you, you're not as brave. But whatever. So now on to happier things. So you went to Gen Con. I mean, do you do a lot of like tabletop, or is that just something you're like, yeah, I'll go?
No, I used to. Used to play. I grew up playing D&D with friends, and then a game called Top Secret, which was like a James Bond spy version. But the way we played it was just absolutely ridiculous. We were like both. He was an awesome spy. I was a hapless spy. Then we went off in college and kind of fell out of playing it. And then 2000, they came out with a new version of it. And my friend who was the DM was like, "Hey man, they came out with a new version. Do you want to play?" And I was like, "Yeah." So we started playing again, and from there we played. And now actually. We went from getting together like once a month or once every few weeks to get together to like now we play almost every every other Thursday on
Right.
I think Roll20.net, which is an online gaming system which is free to play. You can pay for
Yeah,
some
I've heard
extras if you want, but it's awesome.
Yeah, I had a buddy that called me today, and he was talking to me about that. So he was saying like they were playing like D&D Fifth Edition, and that they had a paladin who didn't have. He was talking about the map. So he was saying the paladin didn't have like dark vision or something. So you can actually select the characters that are like you can say, oh, this guy doesn't have dark vision, so he can't see parts of the map that are whatever, and other people have to leave him around or whatever. So I thought that was dope. So you
Yeah, we play, and I will say that in terms of D&D, the fifth edition is a lot easier to play now. It's faster. You don't get bogged down in like 4-hour battles, but good. It's actually almost like Skype because you have four. Like if you look at your screen, you can see the screen itself, like the actual board, and then you have little picture windows of all the players.
right.
So it's kind of funny. You see one of my friends like wipes come in the picture and like slap him, or my guy's his cat like crawls on his shoulder like out of the nowhere. Like, what the hell? But it's a fun way to kind of keep connecting with friends. Now that they have kids and other things going on in their life, or they moved away, they can't necessarily be in the room. It's a nice way to keep in contact.
That's cool. Yeah, it's definitely harder as you move on. Like you can't be like, I can do this for like 12 hours. Like, no, I've
No.
I like that. Yeah, I heard about that. That's pretty cool. And like they said, usually because my buddy was like, yeah, you can join because he lives in Colorado now. And I was in Japan with him, and he was like, yeah, you can play. And then it's like we do like every Thursday for like 3 hours or whatever. He's like, it's free. You can get on there and do your thing. I was like, that's pretty dope. So, I had tried to do it with him one time, and it was online, but it was like, I remember what it was, but it was painful to use like the toolbars and stuff. But now they have the maps and stuff. It's pretty cool. I don't know. Like for me, the way that I play my character, pretty RPG driven when it comes to IWAR anyway. So that, obviously I got it from that, but that's always nice. So, and going back to the IWAR, so who all, for people that don't know, are you running currently right now, and then what leagues are they in?
Oh, my wrestlers? Okay.
Yeah.
In the CWL, I have Barry USA Stevens. In the IWL, I have the Arabian Dream, Aliatari, Senya Lucha, and then I have Victor von Schnapp, Axel von Schnapp, Alex von Schnapp, and Alec von Schnapp. And then over in the BRL, I have Ava von Schnapp, Cowboy Jim Spur, Bad Company Rick Riley, Hot Stuff Adam Cash, and Fatty the Butcher.
What about, so CWL? I'm not in the CWL, haven't been in CWL. So what's the deal with your wrestler there? Like, what is his angle, I guess?
Barry USA Stevens was one of the things I did was some of the names I used I got from a friend of mine that I grew up with when we were playing back when I first started playing IWA. There was a wrestling card game called Superstars of Wrestling, and you just put the name on the top. So one of the wrestlers was Barry Windham, so my friend made him Barry USA Stevens, and I always loved that name, and so I kind of incorporated him. So Barry Stevens is kind of an all-American good guy, but he's been kind of burning out in the last year. He's kind of getting more and more upset with the way things are going, so he's getting a little darker.
So going with his wrestling career or going with the country as a whole?
Oh, his wrestling career. Country-wise, he's made some comments about the country. The last bulletin I just sent in, he knelt during the anthem. Barry Stevens is going through a change.
I'm sure you're gonna get some emails about that one. So
Probably.
that's pretty interesting. That is a pretty cool angle, I think, to kind of angle it that way.
Yeah, Barry's been around a long time. He was at one time I had him in the BRL, and him, Fatty, and Adam were Power Team USA, which was a kind of reboot of Power Team USA from the way back 80s. And basically, it just didn't work out well at all. Like, strat-wise, it just tanked for like 4 months. I'm like, screw this. So Adam abandoned him and Fatty abandoned him. Then he ended up leaving the league. But Barry was always kind of a yo-yo good guy, USA type guy, and now he's kind of just burning out. So that's a lot going on there. So it's getting uptick again. So it's a good time to check it out.
Yeah, and then what do you have? I know you kind of cover a little bit about the guys that you have in the IWL.
Okay, well, the first one I had there was the Arabian Dream Aliatari, and he is going through a change as well, I might say. He was the most hated man in the IWA for a long time. He had like 4 most hated wrestler awards in like 3 different leagues, I'm sorry. LWL, CWL, and then IWL. And just the classic heel, arrogant, bad guy, like super vicious. Like we talked earlier about like guys being committed to being a bad guy. He was, like, I had him beat up a guy's mother and shave her head, like, just a really bad guy. When he won the most hated award in CWL, one of the things he had done was he put Butchie the Giant, who was another wrestler I used to run, I wanted to write him off. So Atari put him in the Atari thumb finisher and put him into a coma and made him a vegetable. So when Atari came out to accept his award, he wheeled out Butchie and, like, had a drooling Butchie there to honor him. It was just, fun bad guy. Well, in the last 6 months or so, him and Luther Alexander, who we'd been teamed with to run, Foreign Legion, then the RX, have had kind of a parting of ways. So now he's kind of showing a different side.
I had Neo Dragon leading a Free Lady Xanadu campaign for a while. So,
yeah,
that's like a couple cycles. So that was always good. But yeah, I do like so. And then it touch on Senior Lucha.
Oh, God. Senor Lucha was first in the BBL, and he was a wrestler I kind of made as I was really into, back when I lived in Woburn, I got really into, like, CMLL and AAA out of Mexico, so Lucha Wrestling. And I always kind of had, like, one wrestler who was, like, the old man of the mountain. He'd been around forever, and he was, like, the classic good guy. So I wrote Senor Lucha as a classic good guy. And he had, the first year we had, like, the IWAR wide awards, he had, like, the best year. He had a crazy year. Like, I think I had 11 regionals out of, like, 17 cycles and 2 league titles. So it was, like, something like out of, like, 17 cycles, he had 15 with a title. It was just amazing the year I had with him. And he was always battling, the biggest bad guys. And then I wrote him off because I wasn't sure what to do with him. So I had him have an injury. And I brought him back to the BRL, and he had a really good feud with Sir Gunter, because when Lucha won the world title, the Attaboy title, the next cycle, Gunter won it, so we wrote that Gunter beat him for it.
Right.
So they had a feud, and Gunter was trying to destroy him. Mind you, at the same time, the IWAR title picture, Ryan Patrick's wrestlers, like Primetime Alex Styles, who was like, a bad guy, like, he was trying to reform his ways, and Lucha was like, I'm gonna help you out and make you a good guy and teach you the right way to win. So when Styles won the world title, he turned on Lucha, and we've had like a feud for years now between those two guys. But Lucha also went through so many injuries that, like, I wrote it that, like, he was in a wheelchair at one point, and he would come to the ring in a wheelchair, then, like, he would, like, get out of the chair and wrestle, then get back in the wheelchair to go back. And what happened with that feud was Ghostly Shadows wanted to work with my guy, so we wrote back and forth. So we had this idea that Lucha would get this medical diagnosis that his career was over, and he's in the hospital, and Johnny B's like going to deliver the bad news, and then Lucha gets a mysterious gift of a new mask. So he puts it on, and he's healed, but it's a cursed mask from Ghostly Shadows, and it's driving him insane. And we had a really fun time with that feud, and then ended up that feud went to a Hell in a Cell, and Lucha won by 1 point. It was like, I always had crazy luck with Lucha at the Battlecade matches. He's always won his Battlecade matches. So he went from there to hit the IWAR draft, and he got drafted to the IWL, so he went there. So he's been there for now, and he's kind of gone through a couple of random things. But the big thing with Lucha right now is this wrestler called Black Demon Jr., who is the son of the Black Demon, who Lucha accidentally killed in the ring way back when, because Black Demon's valet, Medianoche, which is midnight, there was a rumor that that Lucha and her had an affair, so Black Demon was going to try to kill him in the ring. So of course he ended up killing himself, and whatever, like any classic, 80s movie, the villain dies by his own methods. So Lucha's, kind of the classic guy. I was really bummed out with Lucha. He finally won the IWL heavyweight title, only to lose the next cycle, and I was like, oh, because I was so looking forward to writing him his promos with the stands, the fans, and giving these heartfelt emotional pleas as a champion to like, do the right thing, kids. But so that's Lucha right now. And then the Von Schnaps, Victor Von Schnaps, one of my oldest wrestlers next to Dick Jackson and Rick Riley. Victor Von Schnaps started in the Power Pack League in 1988. When it was a group of friends who had got talked into playing. We all liked the Von Erichs because of World Class Championship Wrestling, which was on ESPN like every afternoon. So we each made a Von Schnapp. And like my cousin made Peter, my friend made Duncan, another friend made William. Like it was like all different Von Schnapps. Within a year, like everyone was gone but Victor. And then I brought it back, and some of my friends in the CCL made it again. So we had like Anton and Wilfred, and like they actually went on to, like the Ho brothers managed them. They did some like they won some I think World Tag Battles or something like that. It was a fun thing. So then I kind of like brought him to BRL, and him and Rick had a tag partnership, and they were kind of like friends. And what I did is kind of a dick move back in like 2010. ASL was heading towards 400. I used to get all pissed at the ASL because ASL closed at one point. They weren't always open. It did so badly it closed, and they reopened it because it was the first league and they wanted to kind of keep it going.
Right.
So they rebooted it. But they kept the lineage the same, so even though it was a newer league, it was actually not, whatever. It should be like, I want to say, like 200 something right now. I had Victor and Rick Riley go into the ASL and just raise hell. And actually, Barry Stevens went there too and had a really good feud with Plants guys. And they were mayors. Anyways, so the Von Schnapps, the history with Victor is he was always a floundering like ladies' man. Right. So the idea is he had kids all over the world. So all of his sons, like Alex is from Canada, Toronto. Axel's from London. Alex from Greece. Ava's from Mexico. Otto's from Germany. Like each of his, because he was banging all these women all over the world, so he was this terrible father because he didn't really take care of his kids. So now he's kind of turned around, and Victor's gone through some changes. He kind of pulled a heel move for a while in the CWL where he was dedicated because he just missed. He like on the very last cycle of the year lost the wrestle of the year race to one of his sons, and then next year like a similar thing happened where like he got edged out by this guy who went a really hot run, so he turned on Gauntlet, David Gavilon. Yeah, so we had a screwed feud between the two of them. Anyways, I had fun writing him as a bad guy, but along the way, I introduced sons, Alex and Axel, and they were in the PKL first. They won the PKL tag tournament there. Then I didn't do anything with them. Brought them to the BBL. They went absolutely fucking bonkers. Won the IWA tag titles twice. They went to the CWL, and they just dominated. They were the tag team and six-man team of the year 3 years in a row. Like whatever it was in that league, they were just insane. And they have 5 tag titles so far, which always sounds insane. Even when I first I have a tag title, I was like, "Whoa, finally, yay!" And then I actually have 10 of them now, so I'm like, "Holy shit!" But the last one, actually, they won the last one this spring. But they're just like a high-flying tag team. They're like really, all about high-flying, being good guys and dating chicks, being women like their dad. Alec is the youngest, and he's like kind of a combination. Like the brothers are high flyers, and Victor's a power wrestler. He's kind of a mix of the two. He's done pretty well in the IWL, so there's that. But they've kind of been. I need to change up their feuds because they've been feuding with the same team for a while now, and it's not really going anywhere. And they won the IWAR 6-man titles, and right. We're kind of thinking, well, we'll give them a challenge when somebody pops up. And other than Ryan kind of stepping in with the regulators, no one's really been like chasing the belts. So I'm like, we got to think of a way to get challenged for these. So that's the Von Schnapp. So that's my IWL crew.
So my job, but what I've been trying to get Neo Dragon to do is position Senior Lucha as a heel. So we won't go into some of the drama that was involved in that, but I just like the fact that I can drop some hints about Senior Lucha being heel. I don't know why. I don't dislike Senior Lucha, but I just like to make Neo Dragon have random feuds with other faces for no reason. Kind of like he doesn't like Mike Mason, though Mike Mason did break someone's neck. But yeah, he just doesn't, he'll like randomly talk crap about other heels. More of like a jealousy thing, but Senior Lucha is such an easy target because he's so white bread. So the big thing with Neo Dragon is like I'm like unhappily a baby face, and we just need baby faces in the IWAR and basically in every league period. So right. I'm just kind of he's like a funny like Deadpool type character where he's like sarcastically mean to people and does mean things to other heels, which is only funny because he's not a bad guy. So most of the things he does. So yeah, I think the last TT I wrote he was wearing like a tank top that said like hashtag Lucha Heel or something stupid. So yeah, it's just ridiculous. But I do like what's going on with Blue Demon Jr. I think that's pretty cool. And after watching the AAA Psycho Clown Dr. Wagner match, I have a whole new respect for match wrestlers because that was really cool. I don't know if he like grew his beard out just to look even older, but he was like, seriously, it was intense.
I cannot confirm or deny that if Lucha loses his mask, that's the picture we'll use. That's a high probability.
Like, that was just so amazing. Like, I was like, oh, this is so epic now. And, like, he's obviously, like, I think he looks older than he really is because he's, like, in good shape. Like, if he hadn't took that mask off, like, you know, I wouldn't have known that he was, like, I mean, I guess he's old enough to have a son that's able to wrestle, but, I mean, I wouldn't have known that he's probably not as old as he looks, but
yeah,
he's not a bad-looking dude, but it's just that beard and the gray, and he's like, oh, God, it's so epic. Like, Psycho Clown is for some reason a super baby face, which I don't understand.
When I first saw them wrestle the Psycho Clowns, they were what made them good guys. They were bad guys at first. When I first saw them, they would run the stands, grab children, tear them out of their parents' hands, and then bring them to the ring and scare the hell out of them. And then the parents would be like, remember Halloween, like parents were like, ha ha ha, and they'd go up to the ring and laugh, and, like grab their kid back and like walk away. But these kids would be terrified. So it's kind of funny that he's like a big baby face now. It's like, okay.
Yeah, well, I was like super confused about that because, you know, I've never seen, like, I don't really watch AAA or whatever, right? I don't speak Spanish, so, you know, that's kind of limiting, right?
Right.
So I did watch the Wagner Psycho Clown match in all Spanish, which actually probably made it better because I heard English commentary sucked. But so I'm watching this really confused at first, like why Psycho Clown is so over. But I was talking to Alex about it. It's like he's always trying to get the crowd into it. Like Dr. Wagner, like, you know, hits him with a chair and he like gets up. He's like trying to get the crowd into it. I'm like, bro, I get that you sold that. You're bleeding at this point, but like you're still trying to get the crowd. Like that's all he did the whole match. Like that was his whole offense. The crowd to it, right? So it was just very, very weird. But I mean, I guess I don't know, different psychology on there. But that was honestly a good match. I think just the idea that, like, you know, there's no title on the line, but like him giving up his mask was almost like, you know, titles change hands, things happen, but that's like a life-changing event, and he can't ever get that back. He can't ever wrestle to get his mask back. So I think that's they have that other organizations or other types of wrestling don't have. It's like he can never get his mask back. So that's like he's going to forever be changed, and he's no longer Dr. Wagner Jr. He's, you know, whatever. I can't remember his name, but that's pretty dope. So I know you said like Axel Von Snop was kind of like Flander, but who else is in the BRL?
Yeah. So I have BRL. I have Cowboy Jim Spur, who colorful history. He came out of another wrestler my friend made a name for. I always loved that name, so I brought him to life. And what happened was, I was playing a game online called MMOM. It was like Masters of the Mat. It was like this guy's attempt to basically create an online IWA, and he did a really good job with it actually. But you had to play like every day. So every day the strats would change, and I didn't like it. I actually like the fact that I can like play the game, take time off, and not worry about it. Like, and so we had this team called Western Medicine, and it was Dr. Piledriver MD, which was Scott's guy, and Cowboy Jim Spur. And we were whatever happened, we figured out the tag team rhythm, and we were like taking every tag title, every world title. It was really doing well. And then we went to the LWL with them, and didn't really go over well because guys were mad at me, whatever shit, you know. So I was like, fuck this. So he brought from the BRL, and, you know, just did well. And Jim Spur has been a 2-time tag champion, tag wrestler of the year with the BRL. He's crazy. He's insane. And the idea of Jim Spur is that he was always kept on a weird balance of meds, and what Dr. Piledriver would do was change his medicines to make him more violent or less violent. So if he went off his meds, he'd be completely insane and barbaric in this brutal violence. And if he was on them, he'd be calm. So right now, he came back to the BRL after time away because I had him in the IWL last year, and I had a feud with Scotty Flash, and I was basically a one-sided feud because Scotty wasn't really replying at all. And it's like, dude, like I pile drove your valet, I put it through a hospital, I put it at the table, put it in the hospital, and it just didn't go anywhere. So I kind of just killed the feud, and then I was like, what am I going to do with Jim Spur? So I brought him back to the BRL during the draft, and he's currently kind of between feuds. He just feuded with the Chief...
Bull Fox?
Yeah, him. I'm not tired. Chief Bull Fox, and now it's kind of up in the air, and he formed a tag partnership with Mike Sebastian. And one of the things that happened was, this happens out of the way, is a guy tells me, hey, I'm bringing a team in. They're going to be this guy and that guy. I want to be in the tournament. I want to be in the tag team derby. So they'll be in there. He didn't send them in. I gave Spurn and Sebastian a 3-point win because, they forfeit. They failed to show up. So if the other team, if he's on there this month, it's like, all right. Spur is an absolute madman. He carries like a USA branding iron. And I'll tell you, when we had them in that first game, we did so many brutal sneak attacks that were hysterical. Like on Veterans Day, there was a paralyzed vet, so he was like, oh, it's too bad. I'll beat up your head. And he just punched him in the face. So it was just like, oh, my God. And then, like, on Easter Sunday, he pile drove the priest. And, like, he was always, like, attacking people and, like, being brutal. And the thing was, I would actually say if they were going to make an actual tag team, people would love these guys because the whole idea was that Spur would always go out and lose his shit and be about to beat somebody up. And then right before he was about to punch him, the lights would go out, a blue strobe light for an ambulance would go on, and you hear the heartbeat, boop, 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 flat line. And then you'd hear, code blue, stat, and of course, Welcome to the Jungle starts, and Dr. Piledriver comes running down. He always would come running down with his clipboard and be like, no, Jim, don't do it. Let me give you an alternative. And he'd write down big black marker, Spike Piledriver. And they'd Spike Piledrive whoever they were about to beat up. So that was Jim Spurn, and he's currently tagging with Mike Sebastian. I don't know what's going to happen with that picture. Ava von Schnapp is Vic's daughter, so she's just trying to make her way. And she came out of the gate really hot. And then she kind of cooled off, so she's been kind of crappy lately. But whatever. It's a women's league. It's women's league. It's women's division. It's getting better and better. So we'll keep going off that for now. But that's Ava von Schnapp. Bad Company Rick Riley is probably, I guess, my second oldest wrestler with Mad Dog Dick Jackson. Mad Dog Dick Jackson's in there, but he's retiring soon. And I won't go into that right now. But Bad Company Rick Riley has been around for a long, long time. And has been a good guy, a bad guy. But Bad Company was kind of the best years of his career, where I had him paired up with Scott's Rick Challenger. And what had happened was Rick had left and become an announcer, like a Jesse Ventura for the BRL TV.
Right.
And we had this big showdown between Frank Snow and Dick Jackson. They were in this big feud. And during the ensuing mayhem of the match, Rick Challenger returned. He was an old enemy of Dick Jackson's and Frank Snow's at different times. So he ran in the ring. And then Rick Riley ran in the ring, and they both attacked both guys, and they revealed they were the new Bad Company because Bad Company started with Rick Challenger and Tommy Idol in like 87. And then 89, it was Rick Challenger and Johnny Dream for a couple of years, and then they were the third version. And what was fun about Bad Company was back in the day when I was more obnoxious. I know. Back in the day. We used to send in promos that were butchered by the IWA censors, like, ridiculously, because we were always crossing lines.
Right.
So we got really good, and we got so smart ass about it. We'd our announcer wasn't Dapper Dan D, but it was Mean Gene Senserland. And the idea was just we were like, well, I'd say the word, ass, instead I'll say booty. We really obnoxious about stuff, and we had fun with it. Bad Company was just an extension of our personalities. But we had the worst luck. We made the finals in Murano, we lost. Made the finals again, we lost. We'd miss the tag titles by 1 point, all the time. Come on! So we've never held an IWA tag title together, even though we've come so close. So it's missing. When Noble House was talking shit on the IWAR board about various wrestlers, Scott chimed in with Rick Challenger, so they kind of brought him out of retirement. So we had a Bad Company versus Noble House feud. And now Bad Company's feuding with Los Rudos, which is El Barbero, and he's now called Broken Willie. And that feud's going to be taking off. And Willie lost his ear in a match accident to Dark Phoenix. So, of course, Bad Company, being sympathetic, came out with a giant cake shaped like an ear. And then they came out this month with a guy in an ear mascot suit jumping around. They keep telling me, lend him an ear. It's just, that's kind of how they are. We're obnoxious, sexist pigs. That's Bad Company. And then there's Blood Money, and Blood Money is Adam Cash and Fatty the Butcher, and they are kind of, it's funny because Adam Cash was first introduced in 1993 or 4 as Bad Company's 10-year-old manager, and they were being punished by IWA, and they had to do community service. They took a kid on along with them to be their manager, and of course they were exposing to all kinds of naked women and other crap, and this kid's 10 years old, and he was Adam Cash. So then, jump years later, 2010, he starts wrestling in the IWA as a wrestler. So he's got all this background experience, and him and Fatty met when they were traveling. Fatty's from parts unknown. Adam's from Boston. Adam Cash would always, if I was wrestling, that would be who I would be. House of Adam Cash. He just is a fun wrestler. He's like a Chris Jericho, The Miz, CM Punk. Like, it's a big mouth bad guy. We had this feud with this team called the Detonators years ago, and they were these Mexican high flyers, and we did this whole thing where we had like an Arizona death match with like all the sheriff's deputies were outside the ring. It was just brutal, and we had him good for a long time. What ended up happening was when you turn good, you need a good bad guy. That's one of the biggest things. As much as it's hard to play a good guy, it's so much easier when you have a good bad guy to work with. And we were just like, I say we, but Blood Money was just sitting around doing nothing. At the same time, Jimmy North was transferring from the NWL to the BRL, and we gave him this big push to Jimmy North, and all the fans loved him, and Adam Cash and Fatty were like, who the hell is this guy? So when Becky had to take time off from the game for a short time, we wrote out Jimmy North with his savage sneak attack, and no one knew who did it. Like, Jimmy North was just brutalized and hospitalized, and he was in a coma. So I had this contest of who could name who attacked Jimmy North. And people took some shots, no one guessed it, and then along the way, Lumberjack Zach James, who was another player for a while, he was Jimmy North's tag partner. He was on this mission to find out who did it. And of course, we did the reveal on a Hot Takes episode where Blood Money turned on him. And I can tell you it wasn't Fatty, because there was a whole thing where like a fork was left at the scene, and he thought it was Fatty. And I was like, Fatty didn't do it. I can tell you, Fatty did not do it because I did. And then he super kicked him. So that set up Zach James as a face, or on a face, but like a mission of whatever. But then he jumped out of the game, so it was like we wrote him off with another attack. And then Jimmy North finally returned, and Jimmy North was all ready for revenge. And along the way, there's a group called Canadian Nation, and Canadian Nation was the Molsons and Dr. Wagner 3, Jimmy North, Zach James, and somebody else too. I think Sasquatch. And they were like this Canadian group, and they kind of had splintering. Now, mind you, behind the scenes, a couple players had come to me and said, hey, would you ever expand Blood Money to be a bigger stable? And we already had Adam, Fatty, and Luther as kind of like the three members. And even though Blood Money was always Adam and Fatty, we kind of make a bigger stable out of it. Like, Triple H and HBK being DX,
Right.
So if you read the BRL Trash Talk this month, or if you read the IWAR magazine, we had Jimmy North having a promo. We interrupted, and of course, the Molsons came back to the BRL, and they were like, reuniting with Jimmy North. And mind you, at the same time, we've had a series between Gunner and Jimmy North, and Gunnar Molson has lost each of the matches in the best of 7 series by 1 point. He actually lost all 4 matches by 1 point. That's like so heartbreaking. It's like one thing to lose by like 4 in a row. If you lost like 8 points, 10 points, like you're like, oh man, I doubled the hole, whatever. But 1 point every time, it's brutal. So the way we wrote it up is that the Molsons came out and just demolished Jimmy North. Blood Money now has 2 new members, the Molsons. So now there's 5 people in Blood Money, and Blood Money's kind of going along the route of the Bullet Club, where it's like, if you saw the logo we put up on the page, I just had that idea of ripping them off because it sounded like a good idea at the time. So that's Blood Money. And Adam Cash has been trying to establish himself as the next big star in the business. And unfortunately, I had this whole idea for how the year was going to go, but he lost both big pay-per-view matches to Frank Leatherman Snow, who he was trying to take down. So now he's kind of gone back to his roots, and he's developed a new finisher called the Moneymaker. So he's just, obnoxious jerk. But Fatty never speaks. Fatty used to be Abdul the Butcher, if you will, looks-wise. And then we had Luther used his Russian connections to use advanced Russian sciences to make Fatty super jacked. So Fatty is super jacked now. And always looking for people to beat up. And I will say Adam Cash has had some really good feuds, so I'm looking forward to new ones.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but so you talked about Victor being kind of like a weird philanderer, like having kids in every city. So aren't Atari and Riley, or not Riley, but Hot Stuff, Adam Cash, aren't they related in some way? Or am I wrong about that?
Yes, Adam Cash and Atari are half-brothers. They are the children of Bodacious Brad Blaze, who was Adam Cash's, well, both their fathers, but Adam Cash was mad at Snow because Snow used to team up with Blaze. And Blaze was kind of my Adam Cash before Adam Cash. He was like a big mouth. And the technique I played with him was I'd go into a league and I would insult everybody. So I would make, like, even some of the stupidest insults. I'd be like, oh, your name's like, Deathlock with an X. You're stupid and you can't spell. You're illiterate. Like, I would just make fun of everybody. And I'd feud with the whole entire league. But what I would also do is I'd be like, whoever was feuding with the most, if they were good, I'd be like, I'm going to team with you because that'll mess you up. So Blaze had an awesome kind of rivalry with Snow at one point, then became partners. What was cool was there was a game called the EMWA, which is an online like E-Fed, and Blaze went through I had a really cool angle with him where he became kind of like a Raven character where he became very dark, and his stable became the Firehouse, and he had all these dark wrestlers. It was really kind of a cool time with that character. But yeah, so he was their father, and right now Dick Jackson's become the commentator for the IWL, but there was a Dick Jackson Jr. at one point, and he was a commentator for the BRL, and he was, you may not know it now, but back for a while, like in 2011, 12, 13, when it really had a smaller audience, I used to write really descriptive trash talk with the commentary, with lots of dirty jokes in there. Littered, like Dick Jackson Jr. was obsessed with huge tits. Yeah, I don't know where he gets that from. It was just a fun commentary, and he was always being dirty. And then we had this really cool angle called the Red Cross angle, where we had various wrestlers being found beat up with a little card with the Red Cross symbol on it in blood. It was a mystery of who was the attacker. And that was one of the best angles we ran in the BRL. That was 2011, 2012. Because what had happened is the Blanchards were feuding with Arson Incorporated, and Arson Incorporated was like doing all they could to take him out. And when Arson Incorporated failed, he brought in Fast Cash, which was Adam Cash and Evan Adrenaline, and Johnny Blanchard, who was the uncle of Bobby and James Blanchard, who were the sons of Bobby Blanchard, was in a wheelchair, and he was like a whole gimmick where he couldn't come out of the chair, and they had a cage match, and he ended up jumping out of the wheelchair and slamming the cage door on James Blanchard's head, and it led to Fast Cash beating them. Right. And of course, he was the Red Cross, and it was this whole thing where he was bitter that the IWA didn't send him money for residual checks, and it was a kind of a spoof, But it was a fun angle to play, and then he ended up. We wrote him out by having him fall off a scaffold. It was a match over a pool, and he tried to jump and he missed and hit the edge of the pool and broke his back. So it was just like, oh no, he's really in a wheelchair. So that was a fun feud, and those are the fun memories I have. I like to build memories, like Victor Von Schnapp and Rick Riley having a handicap match against this big bad guy. Or ASL bad guys, so they were training by beating up a gymnasium full of handicapped people. Just vicious, like some fun, vicious shit, And that's really what it comes to me is like I want to have memories. I want to remember things like Ghostly Shadows is one of my favorite wrestlers because the guy commits to the character so much. Same with Joe Boring. I love Joe Boring. If you don't know who Joe Boring is, he's in the NWL and he's a rookie, and he plays off his character like what was that show the guy Mike Judge did, King of the Hill.
Yep.
Yeah. Like, I picture that voice. He cuts these long promos that are, like, really, like, he uses fancy words, and it's just, the fans are chanting boring, and he's like, thank you very much, It's just, like, see someone doing that, So it's the characters that really get me, and that's where it stands out to me, So I'd love to see, like, Noble House with their, with their promos and their feuds, it's a fun watch. Like, Neo Dragon. I remember back when you were in NWL, I was like, oh, nice, a good guy. A guy can write good guys. Because it's a big thing. Like, some guys don't get how to write a good guy. Like, he comes out with a steel chair from behind, beats him unconscious, slaps his valet, punches his mother, and the fans cheer for him.
Through, like, the New Generation era, and then I left right as the Attitude Era was starting, and then I came back after the Attitude Era was over. So I missed that whole allure of like being like the super cool heel, like Steve Austin kind of thing a lot of people grew up with. So I think it helps because like I'm kind of heelish, but I like more like Chris Jericho because I really liked Chris Jericho and like Ultimo Dragon when they were in WCW, like right before the Attitude Era started. So that was kind of like where I got my then like really like CM Punk. So it kind of like fell in together. But yeah, it's not easy being a babyface, like especially because he's kind of smarmy and he's kind of a dick. But he does it in like a nice way. He like can be serious, but most of the time he's just like a prick to but he does get beat up a lot. So I've kind of figured out that the reason that he feuds with Luther Alexander so much is because he's just like the faith version of Luther. So like he can get beat up and like bleed everywhere and like just crazy shit. But he always bounces back. So I definitely. So that kind of segue. So who do you? I think I just mentioned. Do you like? Do you really enjoy what they're doing right now in the IWAR?
Well, there are a number of players I really enjoy their work of. I think some players, don't realize how, if you want to call it popular, but how much we appreciate what they do. Like Ghostly Shadows, to me, I've always enjoyed because he writes a really cool character, and oddly enough, he got me to the band Ghost. So that was also like I just like he's using the image of the Ghost lead singer,
right?
And I just put in Ghost and like image, and I started listening to music. One of the best concerts I've ever been to. Ghost, insane music.
Now you're just as fuck. Is that what you're saying?
Yep. And I will say this: if you put in the effort, I will totally work off it. Like some players come in and they do a little bit of chip in there, and like one of the reasons we had that kayfabe column come up in the IWAR was a lot of players were like, "Hey, like what's going on?" And when I read the Pro Wrestling Torch recaps of like Monday Night Raw or SmackDown, he does a little snap bar below every kind of promo or match of note where he kind of gives a recap of like what this means for the feud or for the league, or like he'll ask questions like, why are they doing this? Why would you do that? So for example, one of the wrestlers, the End Games and Vincent Payne, kept pulling these really weird promos where they were good guys, acting like bad guys. They would go after the same guys and act like really like diaper jokes and poop jokes, like almost like like really not the way to get over as a character.
Right.
And I kind of commented like, hey, so they kind of played off that and they worked on it, and that's the thing. Some players don't respond well to criticism or critiques.
I think too, like people just don't like people play things the wrong way. Like I know it's like Neo Dragon, like he's really sarcastic and he's honestly like, really mean, which is kind of like just an exaggeration of my own like personality, right? So I think that people can take things wrong because I had a guy when I was in the NWL. I don't remember who I was feuding with, but we were doing like the little rookie tournament that you start out with, and he had said something to me, and so I kind of went in and just like said some just stupid shit about him, like talking shit, and then he like never TT'd again, like all this stuff. So I don't know, maybe he just like disappeared, but I was like felt bad because I was like, I really hope I didn't drive this guy out of the game. I'm not trying to be a dick. I mean, it's just the way the character's written. It's kind of the way he comes off, but he's you kind of say you're gonna like break his neck, and he's like, you're an asshole, basically. So I think that I like like you said, if somebody's willing to put forth the effort, and there's I think that the nice thing that we have too now that makes it a lot easier to TT with somebody and stuff like that is like if they're on the Facebook page, they're like, hey, hey, we're gonna do this feud, and like like with TMS guys, like we're doing that now. Like, hey, so what we're gonna do is this is how we're gonna do it. Makes it coordinated. It's not as haphazard as it used to be, because we can be like, this is where we're going to go, and like I can throw, show, this is my TT, and this is what happened, and then everybody can kind of branch off from there instead of just being like, this guy gets attacked, and this guy gets attacked, and everybody gets attacked, and we're all attacked together. Like it is as a lax, it's like less confusion. But yeah, I definitely like, people like that. It's just very easy to, I like, it's just, if you can have like a civil conversation with somebody about how you want to do the angle, like, it's a lot easier to do a good feud, because sometimes like before, like even with the message to get to people and stuff like that. So I think that we have that benefit now, but it's if people get on the message, I'm just trying to encourage people to get on the Facebook page, like especially if you're new coming in the NWL, like get on the Facebook page, you see somebody, figure out who their guy is or whatever, and IM them or put something on there, and then it's going to be so much easier. You don't have to book it, but if you have some like semblance of idea, you're going to have a better feud, and you're not going to offend anybody. And if you get offended, you can always be like, what was that about? And 99% of the time, it'd be like, I was just trying to start shit or whatever. And so I think that's a benefit to that. So, but yeah,
well, I agree. I think that one thing I try to do with my characters now is that outside of Cash, because Cash is just brutal, but most of the time I try to like good-naturedly poke ribs. In the NWL, one of the reasons I can get the bulletin, because I'm a commissioner and I don't have competitive matches. So what I do is in order to get a bulletin, I have to have a wrestler there that has to be active. So I used a wrestler before. I had like the Teamster, And then I had Billy Jack Novak, the rapping wrestler. People loved Billy Jack Novak, who was this terrible jobber who rapped. And I'd make up these ridiculously stupid raps about people, and people were like, happy with it, whatever. But after a while, oftentimes I'll admit, I wrote those raps at like 4 a.m, last minute email. So it was like, that kind of mindset. But I will say, NWL wise, like Winston Smith Jr., Joe Boring, Ricky Kyle, Aaron McFleece when he was there. I'm trying to think some of the guys have vanished recently. Because some guys come in and they have a really good couple of cycles, like TT wise, and then gone. I like the drunken fishermen, drunken camper guys. They're fun to watch or read.
I like the new straight edge. The new straight edge member of their little like stable. He's like their DD now. Can't remember what his name is, but he's like something straight edge.
Oh, jeez. You got to have a designated driver. I miss in the IWL Monty Roach. Dr. Monty Roach had like
I miss Sasha.
He was awesome. I loved his stuff. It was so like he got it. He played the bad guy so well. He had great promos, and something happened in his life where he just hasn't TT'd, and I feel bad about it because he was a great TT'er.
Sasha in the dating game for Luther Alexander. So I do miss.
Yeah. BRL wise, I like TT from. I'm trying to guys that are relatively new or less known. Catfish Rob has the most bizarre trash talk, but the trash talk's not so bizarre as much as the images he draws, the wrestlers he draws are really random. So it's just awesome to see. He had a thing where he had like Luther wearing a diaper for like 4 months in a row. I just didn't know what was up with that. But like, okay. I think a lot of it has to play with how the people play off each other. And some guys, what I think is frustrating is when you put a lot of work in, you're like, I set this great angle up and get nothing back. Like, I'll give you an example. I had this character in the IWL called Steve the Hitman Chambers. And
I remember him. He
had this feud where he went after Jack Vermillion. So he goes with Jack Vermillion, and I'm going to short it down, but he takes out his little like promo segment place, the saloon. He burns it down. He blinds his brother. He shaves his sister's head bald while he watches. All these things to set up this big match at the pay-per-view, and which Chambers won by 1 point. But the thing was, he basically just threw up his hands like I give up, you win. Oh, all right. And I started him up again on the CWL with a similar type feud, and the other player just didn't buy into it at all, so it didn't work or anything. I was like, oh, fuck it then. Because, again, that's just like, you build up, and it's like, here's this great angle, I've done all this work for you, and you're not going to do anything with it. Okay.
Yeah, well, at least, like, especially now, especially with, like, Facebook and stuff like that, like, if you have to go, because you have to go, like, life happens, like, it's understandable, but, like, at least, like, drop a line and say, hey, I might be able to do this anymore, and then you can kind of shut the feud down, like, logically. But yeah, when someone just like bails to bail, it can be frustrating, and it happens. But it's just especially it's just and send a simple Facebook message takes like 5 seconds. So I don't know. Some people kind of I get it. It's kind of awkward sometimes, especially if it's something that should happen. So
like an example of that would be like highlight of the night, Johnny Vegas. Remember Johnny Vegas?
I do remember Johnny Vegas.
He had like 10-page promos that were like shrunk down in tiny print, and we were talking to him for a while, and he had some things going on in his life, but he was going to the IWL, but instead he went to the BRL, but he was active, and he's been active, but like he hasn't TT'd one bit. So I gotta send him a message and be like, dude, what's up? Like your stuff was like rocking as all hell.
Because I remember like I tried to feud with him, and then he didn't like hit me back right away, but I guess I learned later there was whatever the reason was for that, and that's fine. I did get to write up a really nice promo, and he did respond to it, so it actually benefited because the promo I got to write up, everybody enjoyed, so that was good, and it was really fun to write those like kind of passive aggressive, but whatever. But yeah, he did really well, and he's got Hulk Hogan. He's still holding it down. The NWL. He's been there for like 30 cycles, so which isn't really his fault.
I think he's in the ASL now. I think it's finally happened.
They should have like a little celebration for him. He's got a plaque or something. But I don't know. Like, it can be hard. Like I said, like I know, like I did like recruiting duty or whatever, and I had to like leave league, and it kind of sucked. But it was just like I was working 11, 12-hour days. I didn't have time to do what I needed to do and give a little commitment I wanted to give to like TT and stuff like that. So I definitely understand like life kind of gets in the way sometimes. So it is what it is, but definitely try to hit people up and let them know what's going on. It's helpful, especially if you're doing like a big, feud with like group people, where you have like a lot of people counting on you and stuff like that. So it can kind of be good, and it's not that hard. Like if you do come back, it's not that hard. Just find somebody on the website, be like, hey, I want to come back. Most time it's pretty easy segue and then they write you back in. But yeah, man. So what about, other than the IWAR, like who are you following in the real world? Like who are some guys that you really enjoy the work that they're doing?
The Miz, I follow him on Twitter and Instagram. I follow EC3, who is the image I use for Adam Cash, because he's a fantastic bad guy. He's so funny. I know they make him good recently, but it's like he's better off as a bad guy. He really is. Chris Jericho, I always liked his work. I'm trying to think of other examples of guys I follow. The Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, probably my favorite wrestler right now. Amazing matches over and over again. I don't know, just if you watch his stuff from New Japan with Okada, it's like, holy cow.
Well, if you're a wrestling fan and you don't know that those things exist, you should question what you're doing with your life. Because I mean, if you're a mild wrestled fan at this point, Omega Okada. If you don't know, like you're probably not paying attention. But yeah, I definitely agree. Like the Miz. So I went to a Raw that was here in Nashville, and just like the Miz, it was like Seth Rollins. They were doing their whole thing with the Miz. And that was just like, he's just legit. Like, I mean, he's a good heel. Everybody hates him. Like, he just does what he needs to do, and he's just good at it. Like, he just sounds good. Everything's good. So I really enjoy him. I've always liked Chris Jericho. I don't know what it is. Like, I was always like a mark for, when I was younger during that WCW stuff, I was always a mark for like Ultimate Dragon, Chris Jericho, people like that. I don't know why, but they're just like, their matches, like even watching it now, like I watched World War III. One of the World War IIIs recently, which were stupid. But it's just like, I never like got, like the NWO were cool, but it was like, I never really got that as much, because it was more like even watching it now, they're just stupid. Like they do stupid stuff and they get away with stuff that just like doesn't make any logical sense. So, they're basically like blatantly breaking the rules to the point where everyone else looks stupid for not breaking the rules, because they're just so, willy-nilly with like the concept of like the World War III. Like, they didn't have somebody come out. They're supposed to come out. So like, why didn't the Giant wait till everybody got eliminated to come out? Like, he could have won. That would have been easy. But he didn't do that because he didn't follow. Well, so he's an idiot, right? So he could just break the rules. So yeah. But then, they put on good matches like Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, like all those guys. Like that was just amazing. But I like Chris Jericho just because and you can kind of see that Neo Dragon. Like he just Chris Jericho, especially in WCW, like he got to the point where he was going to get himself over. And it didn't really matter what they wanted to do with him at that point, and he didn't care. He would call out Goldberg, he would call out whoever to try to get himself, like he wanted to get over, and then he luckily went to the WWE, which I guess is kind of a mixed bag, but he just kind of made himself into what, I mean, basically he's been successful in spite of the organizations he's been in, things that he's done, like he's just gotten over. He's done it all on his own, I think. So I really like him, really like the way that he's done heel or face. He's done a good job. I think he's a better heel, obviously. But honestly, I think being a heel is easier than being a baby face. But he is one of the few guys, like we talked about earlier. Like when he's a heel, he's a heel. He's always a heel, and he will treat you like you're a piece of shit because he's a heel. Like, it doesn't matter. He's not there to sell merch. He's there to be a heel. So I do like him. So yeah, man, I just think, there's a lot to like. I think that wrestling, maybe not WWE, but wrestling as a whole is kind of on the upswing. It's a lot easier to get stuff like New Japan Worldwide or whatever. I mean, I didn't really get turned on New Japan until I think it was probably like the Styles Nakamura match where they had at Wrestle Kingdom. I can't remember which one it was, but they had their match for their like international title or whatever it is. And I mean, it was just, and then they had Okada. What's the other guy's name? The guy that used to be the ace of New Japan. You know what I'm talking about? There's an H.
Oh, the guy with the eye thing?
No, not the guy with the eye thing. The guy that was like the champion forever before Okada.
Oh.
Starts with an H.
Hashimoto.
It's Tanashi. That's who it is. Anyway, so whatever. But yeah, so they had good matches, but it was just like that Styles like Bullet Club, and then like with Styles Nakamura. I think that kind of like that match was amazing. Like just the way that Nakamura, like the way he wrestles, like that strong style wrestling is just like dope. Like it looked like he was going to kill AJ Styles, and like vice versa. Like they were fucking each other up, but I mean obviously they weren't. But it was just legit. Like you don't really see that as much. Like I'm saying, like you can tell when like they're like you said, like even like when you were learning in wrestling school, Kowalski, like he's like you make it look like you're gonna kill the motherfucker. Like, and that's what they did. Is it looked like when he was knee him, it looked like it hurt, or when Styles did his forearm, it looked like he like decapitated Nakamura or whatever. It's just they mean more, and I think the psychology is better. Like especially Okada and the other guy, because Okada had not won the title to him, like made a mistake, and so they like zoomed in on him grabbing his wrist to do the Rainmaker, and that was like a huge deal. It was like a change in the guard. Like there's so much like it wasn't like stupid psychology. Like there wasn't this. It was like they were just fighting to win the title. They didn't, they probably didn't like each other. Okada was the heel at the time, but he wasn't. Japan is like there's not people are heels, but they don't always have to be like really crazy heels. They can just be less liked or whatever, right?
Right.
So just like the way that the camera work in New Japan Pro Wrestling for some reason is really good, but they just emphasize the right things. It was just psychology was really sound. That kind of lacks, and I would probably ROH is good. I don't know. The indies are always kind of screwy. Like they're either like really good or like you're really confused. It's hard to build psychology in a match that like it's like a one-off most of the time for most people when they're tuning in, so it's kind of hard to understand why it's important. But in New Japan, they do a lot of good, like, oh, okay, I don't have to know what's going on. I don't have to speak the same language. I do know why these guys are fighting, though, so that's cool, and then you understand. But I think that they just have really good psychology, camera work, presentation, stuff like that. It's pretty good time to be a wrestling fan. Again, Matt, I appreciate it. I know it's probably late